Veteran actor named Djimon Hounsou recently spoke out about systemic racism holding him back in Hollywood for decades. And that's why he feels he is not paid fairly enough or given the recognition that he believes he deserves at the major award shows like the Oscars. He has been nominated but never won. He thinks himself a Leonardo DiCaprio. But here's this video of him talking about his mistreatment in Hollywood. And this was on the CNN African Voices Changemakers podcast, because we live in an age of diversity.
I'm still struggling trying to make a living.
After 30 years in this business.
I've been in this business and making films now over 2 decades, and still, with 2 Oscar nominations, many
he's an actor and a
blockbuster films, and yet I'm still struggling financially to make a living. I'm definitely underpaid.
How has Hollywood changed
a sad
in terms of
song
African
of the world's
representation in what you
violin.
see since you started out to what's being produced now?
I was nominated for a Golden Globe, but they ignored me for the Oscars, talking about the fact that they thought that I just came off the boat and off the streets. Even though I successfully did that, they just didn't feel like I was an actor for whom we should pay any respect to. So this conceptual idea of diversity, it still has a long way to go. Systemic racism don't change like that anytime soon.
Growing up,
activists never want it to change, otherwise they're out of a job.
Right.
You're one of the first big black actors I saw in big budget films, so it's mind-boggling to me.
But that's a sign for you that systemic racism is not something that you can deal with lightly. You have to cope with it and survive the best way you can.
Okay, so I'm going to add a little context to this, because it actually does undersell him to call him, like, he's a very, very good actor. But what it is that he's not a lead actor. What he is he's the unbelievably reliable actor that you put into your movie to help fill out your cast. And that is an important role in Hollywood.
A trusty C-lister.
Yes. I wouldn't even say
B-lister. I don't know. I never heard of this guy.
Here's the thing. We're going to go through his credits, and these are not small films. None of these are small films. A Quiet Place Day One, Rebel Moon, Gran Turismo, Shazam, Black Adam, The King's Man, What If, Invincible, A Quiet Place Part 2, Charlie's Angels. Like, these are not small budget films or television roles, though he does do that as well. He is a very, very talented actor. He is one of those actors that when I see him in a movie, I get very, very excited. He was in Blood Diamond. He was in the original Gladiator in 2000. They did not bring him back in the new one. But the point is that there are different classes when it comes to your ranking as an actor. And the reason why you'll never hear Denzel Washington or Morgan Freeman or Samuel L. Jackson making similar complaints, or at least not about their own performances, is because they have transcended that role of a reliable supporting actor into being the leading man of their projects. And the best way to guarantee yourself a larger payday is to reach that scale. But most people are going to say you need a more aggressive agent. You need to, stand up for what you think you're worth at the bargaining table. But a lot of them will make that choice, or they'll make that bet that I think I'm worth more than this. So they're going to ask for more, and they'll walk away if they don't. But the thing is Hollywood is mostly it's a gig economy. You're only working every so often, and to continue to work, you're going to have to take roles that don't pay as well as others. That's the case here in a lot of respects. I can't speak to whether he was screwed out of awards because of his race. I do believe that in a lot of recent years, they've done a very, very big job of trying to correct what the industry itself thinks of as systemic racism, to the point where a lot of people see it as an overcorrection to what they've done. I can't speak to whether that's true or not. I don't have privy to the inside conversations that they have there. But what you're seeing right here is the case for many, many, many millions, not thousands, millions upon millions of actors who work for decades for far less success than he has found himself.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a paycheck to paycheck economy.
You could say that the purpose he serves in all of these projects is bringing out the best in other people.
But the thing is, that's important.
There's nothing wrong with that.
No,
that's actually a really important role that needs to be filled. He just can't stand the fact that he's not Denzel Washington. And it's very clear he has a history of complaining about things like this. And he actually has quite the incredible story I was reading about earlier. He is kind of the blueprint for what some people would call the American dream. Mm-hmm. He is an African actor, but then he came to France on a student visa, which then expired. He was homeless, living on the streets with an expired visa, literally illegal. And by then, he was spotted on the street by a modeling agent and got immediately massive roles modeling for huge designer brands. Then he thought that wasn't really for him. He was still looking for acting gigs, but he said acting work was hard to come by. Quote, I felt the racism was quite heavy out there back then. We're talking about the 90s, just saying. And then in regard to his feeling of being overlooked for recognition in Hollywood in things like Oscar nominations, he said, if movies had come out today, if my movies had come out today, I definitely would have gotten an Oscar already. He was nominated for his performances in America and Blood Diamond, although in Blood Diamond, Leonardo DiCaprio received nomination for Best Actor.
Yeah, but he didn't win his Oscar. Like, it became a meme that he could never win his Oscar until years later for The Revenant.
So it must have been because Leonardo is white. But yeah, they say he instead had to make do with a nod for Best Supporting Actor, despite the film focusing more on his character's story. He said, I felt seriously cheated. Today, we talk so much about the Oscars being so white, but I remember there was a time where I had no support at all. No support from my own people, no support from the media, from the industry itself. It felt like you should be happy that you got nominated and that's it. He was frustrated with the limited parts black actors were being offered. He played a slave 3 times in 5 years. He said, I'm still struggling. I'm telling you, this was not the new interview. This was back in 2023 that he said this. I'm still struggling to make a dollar. I've come up in the business with some people who are absolutely well off and have very little of my accolades. I feel cheated, tremendously cheated in terms of finances and workload as well.
There's a certain amount of ego that has to go into getting to a certain level in Hollywood where you have to believe you're that good. Mm-hmm. So I actually get where the start of that process begins and maybe it goes too far. Like, you kind of do have to be a bit delusional about your own talent and your own worth to actually to find yourself mm-hmm. in the world. Like, very, very few people are so undeniably good that they justify the ego. The rest of it is kind of like, yeah, sure, you're great, but it's not like you're the only person who could do that role. Like, very, very few people are the level of, like, say, Robert Downey Jr. as Tony Stark, where people believe that nobody else could play that role but him. And there's other such small other examples of actors in positions like that. But at a certain point, where does to me, I feel like gratitude is a more healthy default mindset. If you're grateful for what you have, it makes life a lot less arduous. Like,
that's why I said you would think someone coming from such extraordinarily humble beginnings would be a little more grateful for the success that they've found in Hollywood.
I did find this from Realtor.com where
exposed
last
hypocrite.
year, 2 years ago, he was renting out a home that he bought for $2 million for $11,750 a month. Again, the point being that within your industry, you could be perceived as undervalued and underpaid, but to the average everyday person, they're not going to look at that and see it that way.
If you bought a home for over $2 million in California anytime in the recent past, you definitely aren't broke, even if you claim to be. And if you actually are broke after such a purchase, it just means you're bad at managing your money. So this guy actually would do well to invest in a financial manager.
Yeah.
Instead
Well,
of
remember we talked
doing
about
these interviews where he's crying and complaining all the time.
We talked about Taraji P. Henson in the same context of this, where she said the money doesn't last because you've got, like, you have to pay your manager, you have to pay your agent, you have to pay your head of security, all of these people. Like, they have entire groups of people that work for them, so the money's gone
and
as quickly as it
stylists
comes.
and every family member you can possibly think of, and your friends and your posse.
He is a very, very recognizable actor, but he's the kind of the definition of the actor where you know his face, but you don't know his name. And unfortunately, that kind of doesn't add up to the level of financial security that you're looking for here.
It's kind of because he has a weird name and Americans can't pronounce or recognize it.
And
so
and you made that point too, where perhaps changing his name would have helped.
that's why stage names are a thing after all.
And there used to be that has become a politically loaded discussion.
Yeah.
Where having to change your name so that audiences find your name easier to say is seen as racist.
Surrendering to the racists.
I got a last name that gets pronounced right maybe once every 500 times.
Desovich?
Yeah, I don't see anything wrong with, shortening the name to make it more instantly recognizable to people. It's not surrendering anything. It's a financially beneficial decision to you in your career. Now, to his credit, he didn't do it and he still found success on his own, but I still feel that gratitude for what you have rather than anger for what you feel you were owed, even when what you have is so far beyond what the average everyday person will experience. Maybe you're right. Maybe it's all the things that you said it is. But even if that's true, all you get to say is, I told you so, and you're still miserable because there's no fixing these problems. There's no finish line or end goal to this. The only end goal that you can have that will really benefit you will be some type of inner peace, because you're never going to wake up one day to a news article that says, we have solved systemic racism. It's fixed. The world is better now. If anything, we're surrounded by a bunch of problems that are imminently unsolvable on the largest scale possible, which just means a lot of people are going to be left unhappy.
But people are realizing that this type of rhetoric is falling out of fashion, even in an industry as isolated and ideologically incubated from the rest of the world as Hollywood. Even in Hollywood, the cracks are starting to show, and whatever wokeness was doing for them, they'll find something else to substitute it. Yeah. And as I remember Dane saying, it's something worse will replace it. I've just noticed less and less of this type of commentary from celebrities as of late, and it's because he's getting left in the dust.
Perhaps it's the idea that they realize that the average person will give them more credit if they don't talk like that than if they do.
Right.
There are no benefits to talking that way anymore. I don't know. You make do with that what you will, but I think that he'll continue to get work. He's going to continue to be successful in Hollywood. I don't see this affecting his career in any way. He's good at his job. And if anything, be grateful for that. You're gifted at what you do. People take notice of it and you get consistent work. He's had recurring roles in both DC and Marvel. He was in the original Gladiator film. Amistad is a very famous film. Like, there's just a lot of things that he's done that a lot of, look to your left, look to your right. Look at the starving Hollywood artist of all races, creeds, and colors, and they would kill to have what you have and be grateful.
Yeah, exactly.
Thanks for watching. Listen to full episodes of Pop Culture Crisis on Spotify.
Keep up with us on social media and make sure you subscribe and ring that bell so you never miss the show. Bye, guys.